In New York City today, Loretta Swit died. She was one of the stars of the great CBS show. What the hell are you doing, Captain? I know this sounds like a silly question. But they were even closer behind closed doors. Alda kept quiet about their friendship off-screen for years. Yet, now that Swit has died, the well-known actor is finally speaking out. What stories did he not tell anyone for so long? The last curtain call, the death of Loretta Swit, and the sadness of the world. The sad news of Loretta Swit's death reached the world on May 30, 2025. The actor who won an Emmy for her role as Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan on the groundbreaking TV show MASH died peacefully at her home in New York City. She was 87 years old. Harlan Bowl, who was her agent, confirmed that she died just after noon on May 30, and the reason was thought to be natural. The fact that the reports spread quickly and were confirmed by her publicist showed how deeply people connected with Swit and, by extension, with the popular series she helped create. It wasn't just a loss of a famous person when she died. People all over the world lost someone who they loved like a part of their own extended family. As soon as the news came out, it was all about her iconic MASH part, but the first reports also mentioned that she had done work before the Korean War. Loretta Swit had a long and successful career in both theater and TV, and she was also a strong supporter of animal rights. She first became a vegetarian when she was young, and in 1981 she became a vegan. Loretta Swit was still talking to friends and celebrating the MASH legacy on social media just a few days before she died. She wrote a touching ode for Memorial Day and sent a sweet birthday message to Gary Berghoff, who used to play Radar, writing, "Happy birthday, Gary. It gets 10." Along with a slideshow of old pictures from the show. Loretta's friendship with her co-stars on MASH never went away, even after many years had passed. In an interview for the show's 50th anniversary in 2022, she said, "We see each other quite often. It's not like these people are just casual friends from years ago. This is my family." She had a happy memory of their first day working together and how much energy and excitement everyone brought to the set. That strong link never changed. On the 42nd anniversary of the last episode of Masha, Loretta posted again, amazed at how quickly time had gone by. Where does the time go? Writing. Here's to you, masked family around the world. Wishing you a happy anniversary filled with thanks and love. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. The words of love she sent to her co-stars before she died and after she died made it clear that their friendship went beyond scripts and sound stages. Being friends for life is only possible when you share something truly special, like working together on a show that touched millions of people and has stood the test of time. What makes Alan Alda's latest tribute to Loretta Swit so moving is this deep sense of connection, both on and off screen. Alan Alda's deep silence was broken. An honor to an actor who was truly exceptional. Fans all over the world waited to hear from someone they knew had been close to Loretta Swit on and off screen in the days after the sad news of her death. Alan Alda is that guy. At age 89, the MASH star went on X to talk about his friend and co-star who had died. In typical Alda style, it wasn't just a tribute. It was a love letter to the woman who helped make one of the most famous TV shows ever. Alda wrote that Swit was a truly exceptional actor and that she earned all 10 of her Emmy nominations and her 2 wins. He did praise her awards, but that wasn't all. Alda went into more detail and talked about how important she was behind the scenes. From 1972 to 1983, Loretta Swit played Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, an army nurse who was tough but had a big heart. Fans of MASH will never forget her role. Along with Alda, Captain Benjamin Franklin Hawkeye Pierce, Jamie Farr, Corporal Maxwell Q. Klinger, and William Christopher, Father Mulcahy, she was one of only 4 cast members who stayed for all 11 seasons. Alda says that Swit did more than just play. Because of how she played her part, the whole show changed. Alda said she made it, not by writing it, but by putting all of her heart into the part and trying hard to make Margaret less of a one-note sexist stereotype and more like a real person. He said that she worked hard to show the writers how to make the character more than just a sexist joke character. She made them into a real person with real feelings and goals. Alda talked about an important event that happened on set that meant a lot to both of them. When the script came out, it said that her character's name wasn't Hot Lips, but Margaret. We had a party. For Alda, that was more than just a line from a script. It showed how hard Swat worked, how much she learned, and how much heart she put into her work. He also said that Loretta made the most of her time here. While Margaret and Hawkeye were on Masha, fans knew them as the will they won't they couple, even though they were never romantically involved. But Alda and Swit were very close behind the scenes. One that was made after years of working together and telling the show how to make people feel. Many people were shocked when Swit died. Her professional Instagram account had been used to connect with friends just 4 days before the news came out. The stars of MASH and viewers were shocked and saddened by her sudden death. Also, Jamie Farr, who played Corporal Maxwell Q. Klinger, shared a word from himself. He talked about how much he would miss Swit and called her his adopted sister. BJ Honeycutt, played by Mike Farrell, joined the group in season 4. He paid tribute to Swit with a simple black and white photo and the words Loretta 1937, 2025. Fans also sent a lot of tributes, and one comment stood out as especially sweet. Someone responded to Alda's post, "It's because of you guys that I became a nurse and learned that being human with your patients isn't a bad thing." In just one phrase, that sentence shows how MASH gave many people comfort, meaning, and inspiration. It was artists like Alda and Loretta Swit who made it happen. Loretta Swit is no longer with us, but her work as Margaret, as an actress who broke new ground, and as a kind, creative force lives on. She turned a one-note character into a strong, multidimensional woman, which was one of her greatest accomplishments. How Loretta Swit's character changed from Hot Lips to Margaret. In 1972, Loretta Swit started playing Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan on MASH. However, the part had already been played by someone else in a very broad and, to be honest, hollow way. Robert Altman directed the first MASH movie in 1970, and Sally Kellerman played Margaret, who was a one-note character. Tight, too strict, and mostly there to be the punchline of jokes. She was often presented as a dumb, naughty nurse who was stuck on following the rules. And having an affair with Frank Burns in secret. The fact that her private moment with him was shown to the whole camp made her feel even worse about herself. When the show first started, Swit played Margaret in a way that was similar to Kellerman's, making her cold, bossy, and mostly used for laughs. Things began to change here, though. Loretta Swit didn't like having Margaret locked up in that box. She knew that the character would not last long in a show that was clearly meant to last for a while if she stayed a one-joke racist stereotype. Around the second or third season, Swit made his choice. She said, that quote says it all. She wasn't afraid to ruin a few jokes to make Margaret more interesting. The name Hot Lips was never something Loretta Swit liked. In fact, she thought it was insulting and took away from the depth of her character. Swit didn't just wait for things to change, she was determined to give Margaret more than a one-dimensional name. She did something. She told the writers to keep going. To not think of Margaret as a joke or a fixed idea. Because she didn't give up, the character slowly changed from a stiff stereotype into a real woman with strong feelings, goals, and a strong sense of who she is. Each big event that happened to Margaret was seen by Swit as something that would shape her character. Swit once said that she never stopped growing, which is why MASH began to talk about bigger issues. Through Margaret's eyes, we see sexism, gender roles in the military, and mental trauma. People did notice that change. Margaret changed over time. She became much less stiff and gave off a lot more layers. People stopped calling someone the Hot Lips as of late. Over time, the show started calling her just Margaret more and more. And the change in name was important. Margaret was no longer just the head nurse who went too far with her sexuality and got caught up in silly drama. She rose to become a recognized officer and a woman of honor. He even tried to get the writers to stop calling him by that name. As the seasons went on, they did just that. Alda, who made it clear that he was happy to be a feminist, said that Loretta Swit helped Margaret grow a lot. Always trying to make things better. Alda even remembered how happy the cast and crew were when a script finally changed her name from Hot Lips to Margaret. On paper, it might have only seemed like a small change, but to them, it was a huge win. Changing your name meant a lot. After years of living with a sexist nickname, Margaret had finally become her own unique person. It was such an amazing change that many fans and critics say that Margaret Houlihan changed the most of any character on the show. From being strict, lonely, and angry, she changed into someone warm, strong, and open of heart. She was very attached to Frank Burns when she was young, and he brought out the worst in her. This was a big part of her original story. But Margaret started to do better after that bad relationship finished. She even married a man called Donald Penobscot, but they split up soon after. And even though the breakup was painful, it helped her become someone who didn't need a man's approval to define who she was. The Nurses, Season 5, Episode 5 was one of the most important turning points. Margaret finally talked about how lonely and alone she felt in it. She asked, "Has anyone ever given me a bad cup of coffee, in a strong moment?" That scene showed how weak she really was, even though she seemed tough. It was also the start of her real relationship with the other women on the show. After the fact, Swit said that story was the one that really changed her character. The two-part season 6 show Comrades in Arms had another great moment, which leaves Margaret and Hawkeye stuck behind enemy lines. They had to rely on each other in that tough situation, which led to a romantic encounter they didn't expect. Even though they were only together for a short time, the relationship changed them forever. From then on, they stopped fighting all the time and became true friends who respected each other. By the end of MASH, Margaret wasn't just a supporting character, she was a very real person. People looked up to her because she was strong and independent. Also, Swit's achievement wasn't forgotten. In 1980 and 1982, she won 2 Emmys for her part, even though the character was very different from how she looked in the beginning. But Margaret's change had an effect that went far beyond one TV show. In the 1970s, the feminist movement was growing, and Margaret's changes were a reflection of that. It wasn't just a part for Swit. She wanted more women to be shown on TV and in movies. She got the female figures she wanted, ones with depth, choice, and a wide range of emotions. It might not seem like a big deal that she changed her name from Hot Lips to Margaret, but it meant a lot. The idea for Hot Lips came from a joke that made fun of smart, capable women by calling them body parts. She took back her identity by giving up that nickname. It helped her get past the old image and become a more honest version of herself. Because Loretta Swit was determined, a part that could have been dull and forgotten became one of the most important character arcs in TV history. Margaret got a soul from her. She helped change what women could be on TV by doing that. They are smart, weak, broken, brave, and most of all, real. A strange love story with Hawkeye, Margaret, and the famous kiss. One of MASH's most interesting and complicated relationships was between Alda's Captain Benjamin Hawkeye Pierce and Loretta Swit's Major Margaret Houlihan. It started with Hawkeye's almost inappropriate teasing and Margaret's strict obedience to military rules, which put them at odds with each other a lot. But despite the constant teasing, professional problems, and ideological disagreements, there was an obvious current of respect for each other's amazing medical genius, and over time, a deep friendship grew. It was hard to describe their friendship. Not exactly romantic, and not just work-related either. Tease, tension, respect, and something deeper that was never fully said made up the scene. Fans of MASH were hooked on Hawkeye Pierce and Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan's back and forth for more than 10 years. Their friendship was one of the most interesting parts of the show, even though it never turned into a typical love story. One unforgettable moment marked the end of that one-of-a-kind friendship. The 35-second kiss they had at the end of the show. Thank you, bye, and amen. Nearly 106 million people saw that kiss, so it was more than just a short scene. It was worth it. That had been growing for years and made the finale the most watched show in the history of TV. It's been called the most expensive kiss in TV history many times. Not because it was expensive, but because it made people who had been following their story for a long time feel sad. Not just the kiss itself, but everything that happened before it made that moment so strong. The show had been building their friendship slowly over years. At first, they were rivals and often fought, but as time went on, their friendship changed. There was respect, care, and maybe even love under all the sarcasm and fights. It was just not the love we see on TV. MASH didn't force them into a neat love story. Instead, they let their relationship grow into something more real. The kiss was so strong because of the stress that built up over time. It was not the beginning of anything. It was the best way to say goodbye. It was beautiful when Loretta Swit, who played Margaret, talked about why the characters never really became a pair. She said they were together because they loved each other very much, but not in the way that usually leads to a relationship. It was more like a close friendship. Something that was even more important during war. They grew close and became friends. There are various types of love, and their love was very strong. The show showed that their bond grew and got stronger over time. To begin with, Margaret thought he was a brilliant surgeon, so there was admire. They can't do that after they've had an affair. She told them that they need to remember how much love and care they showed each other at that time. She also talked about Comrades in Arms, the two-part story from season 6 that Alda wrote himself to see if Hawkeye and Margaret could be a couple. In that story, they spent the night together. But Swit thought that even though they had to admit that they loved and cared for each other, continuing together wouldn't make sense. It wasn't who they were. She thought that the fact that they were close friends and strong teammates made their bond even stronger. She said that their relationship was more special because it wasn't based on romance but on trust, a shared trauma, and respect for each other. Those things are sometimes more important than love stories in a war zone. MASH showed that good connections don't always lead to relationships. It's enough to just be there for each other sometimes. Just the writing wasn't enough to make me feel that way. An off-screen bond between Alda and Loretta Swit also gave it its start. Alda often said nice things about Swit for how seriously she played her part and how much heart she put into making Margaret who she was. In response, Swit called the group her family. Other co-stars, like Jamie Farr, said the same thing. While shooting The Nurses, there was a scene that really showed how close they were off-screen. After giving a heavy speech, Swit broke down in real life, not as a character. It got quiet in the room. No one spoke. Alda then came over and gave her a simple hug. That quiet move said everything. It was no longer about playing. It was about helping each other out. Maybe that's why Hawkeye and Margaret seemed to have such a strong bond. Since it was. Because it was real, their story will never be forgotten. It wasn't a story. It was more than that, it was human. And that doesn't happen very often on TV. Loretta Swit's life of love and purpose after MASH. Major Margaret Houlihan is Loretta Swit's most famous and long-lasting part, but her career went far beyond the 4077th Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. After the historic run of MASH ended, Swit continued to show how versatile she is on stage and film. She was in a number of TV movies, such as the touching The Best Christmas Pageant Ever and the intense The Execution. As a guest star, she was on many hit short-form shows, including The Love Boat and Diagnosis Murder. Some of the movies she's been in are Beer and Forest Warrior. Swit had a successful and busy theater career throughout her life in addition to her work in movies. In 1975, she made her Broadway appearance in the play Same Time Next Year. Later, she was in The Mystery of Edwin Drood. She also went on a lot of tours with plays like Mame and did her very popular one-woman show Shirley Valentine all over the world for many years. Even though she kept working, Swit had to deal with the common problem of being typecast after such a big part. She was offered the lead part in the TV show Cagney and Lacey after starring in the show's pilot in 1981, but she couldn't take it because of her contract with MASH. After MASH ended, Swit could have tried to get a lead part in a new show, but she chose one-off roles and a lot of game show appearances, which shows she didn't want to be stuck in the same role again. In addition to acting, one of the most important things about Loretta Swit's life was her steadfast commitment to animal rights. She fought hard and loudly for all animals. She reportedly said, "Animals are my friends, not my food." Swit has been a vegan since 1981 and has used her public position to condemn puppy mills as evil and to encourage people to adopt pets instead of buying them. She also taught people how important it is to spay and neuter their pets. She was an activist who took direct action. She was one of several famous people who signed an open letter to President Reagan calling for the relocation of the Silver Spring Nine, a group of monkeys that were saved from a lab, to safe places to stay. Swit also started her own animal charity called the Sweetheart Animal Alliance. Its goal is to reunite dogs from Afghanistan with their owners and find homeless pets for veterans. In her book, Sweetheart, The Watercolor Artistry and Animal Activism of Loretta Swit, she combined her love of art with her work as an animal rights activist. All the money she made from the sale of this collection of animal portraits in 2017 went to her charity, showing how much she cares about animal safety. In her private thoughts, was honest about the choices she had made in her life. In a 1979 interview, she stated that she always wanted to be an actress and remembered her early love for film fostered by her mother. She also said she didn't want to get married or have kids. She said Alda helped her stop feeling bad about not wanting a family because she saw her parents and friends as her family. She later got married to actor Dennis Houlihan, whom she met on MASH in 1983. They split up in 1995, and she never had kids. Swit's had a story of fierce freedom and a strong commitment to her work. She wasn't the only MASH star who became famous outside of TV and movies, though. Her life showed how important it is to follow your heart instead of following the crowd. Her closest co-star, on the other hand, left behind a legacy based on empathy, intelligence, and humor. The lasting legacy and personal journey of Alda. Alfonso Joseph de Bruzzo was born Alda. He has had an amazing and varied career that goes far beyond his famous part as Hawkeye Pierce. His journey began a long time before the 4077th. His skills as an improviser got better in the 1950s with the help of groups like the Compass Players and Second City. In the beginning of his work, he made his Broadway debut in Purlie Victorious in 1961. For his role in the musical The Apple Tree in 1966, he was nominated for a Tony Award. He was also in early movies like Paper Lion, 1968, and The Mephisto Waltz, 1971, and he was a regular on That Was the Week That Was, the first political comedy show on TV. Personal events in Alda's life also had a big impact on his artistic beliefs. He was in the US for 6 months. After college, he joined the Army Reserves and was stationed in Korea, where he was in charge of a mess tent. His time in the military was short and uneventful compared to many others who served in direct battle, but it taught him a lot about how serious war is. He saw troops staring blankly or playing with their food, obviously shocked by what they were seeing. This made him want MASH to show how horrible war really is. She was worried that the show would turn into silly antics at the front. She told co-creators Larry Gelbart and Gene Reynolds, who were both soldiers, that they wanted to make a show that showed the war for what it is, a place where people are hurt badly. This dedication to reality, even in a comedic setting, became a key part of MASH's anti-war stance and its ability to deliver touching moments along with its humor. During his time on MASH, Alda was a major creative force that changed the tone and direction of the show. He was in charge of 32 shows and wrote 19. Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, the record-breaking series End, is one of them. There is only one other person who has won Emmys for playing, writing, and directing for the same show. MASH went from being a typical service comedy to a more serious, dramatic show that openly talked about political and social problems as he took over as the show's creator. He was so dedicated to character growth that he helped shape characters like Charles, Margaret, Father Mulcahy, and Klinger. He even fought to keep William Christopher, who played Father Mulcahy, on the show. Alda's ability to improvise, which was clear in his very first scene as Hawkeye, when he hugged a nurse on the spot to get into character, added to the show's heart and realism. After MASH, Alda's career took a huge turn for the better. As time went on, he continued to act in and direct movies, such as The Four Seasons, 1981, Sweet Liberty, 1986, and Betsy's Wedding, 1990. An Academy Award mention was made for him for his part in Martin Scorsese's 2004 movie The Aviator. And was in movies like Crimes and Misdemeanors, 1989, Bridge of Spies, 2015, and Marriage Story, 2019, that got good reviews. He won another Emmy for his regular role as Senator Arnold Vindnick on The West Wing from 2004 to 2006. He also had parts in 30 Rock and Ray Donovan. Alda also made important contributions to how people talk about science. He was the host of the educational PBS show Scientific American Frontiers for 14 years. He helped start the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science at Stony Brook University with others in 2009. There, he used spontaneous theater exercises to teach scientists how to talk to the public better. Alda told everyone in 2018 that he had Parkinson's disease, which he had been dealing with since 2015. He has a very positive outlook on things, even though they are hard. He says he is making progress and is always looking for the funny side. He thinks of taking care of the disease as almost a full-time job and is always looking for new ways to do things. That he solves problems and feels like $1,000,000, like in a game. Alan Alda's drive and strength, even though he was having health problems, show how important he was as an actor, a voice for others, and an amazing person. When you talk about Alan and Swit's legacy, you have to talk about the show that made it all possible. The legacy of MASH that will last. The TV show MASH, which ran from 1972 to 1983, was a completely new and groundbreaking culture phenomenon that completely changed the way American media works. It was both funny and sad at the same time, like a medical thriller set in a war zone. For sure, it made people laugh, but more than that, it made them think and feel. It took place during the Korean War, but it was clearly influenced by the Vietnam War. It was funny, but it also made fun of war, questioned authority, and dealt with serious problems like PTSD, racism, sexism, and the mental effects of constant violence. Because of MASH, other shows were able to deal with important issues while still being funny. After it, shows like Murphy Brown, Designing Women, Scrubs, and Hill Street Blues mixed humor with honest, often painful facts. There was a bad side to fame, though. Wayne Rogers, who played Trapper John, and McLean Stevenson, who played Henry Blake, quit early because they said Alda was becoming a bigger star than them. Even so, the show changed, just like the characters did when things went wrong. The group that changed all the time was a lot like war, where nothing stays the same for long. The last words were goodbye, farewell, and amen. About 106 million people watched it when it aired in 1983. It broke all kinds of records. The streets were empty. The country took a moment to say goodbye. The most people ever watched a TV show, and that last episode still holds the record. Were Alan Alda and Loretta Swit just pretending to be someone else? Or did their relationship as Hawkeye and Margaret show something deeper about love, friendship, and how people connect with each other in real life? Answers should be left in the box below. Make sure you like the movie and follow the channel. Thanks for seeing it.